For a veteran like yourself, spring training, as we record this the day before games actually start, how much are you itching to just like, let's get going now that you know what you need to do and things like, what are these few days of like actually waiting to get on a mound and at least in front of fans per se? Like, what are these days just like, all right, let's go, let's get this over with?
So I feel like we've been here for, first off, the veteran thing, that's kind of crazy. I think I did learn that I am actually the longest tenure brewer. I don't know by how much, but I think I've got that title right now. I might have to double check, but and that's crazy to me, like how fortunate I am to be with the Brewers since I was drafted in 14 and still here now. So that's pretty cool. But just it's nice having a normal spring training. I don't think we've had one in like the last 2 to 3 years. So being able to come in and like slowly, gradually build yourselves up is I think is it's been good. So it's good for me. Last year having only like 3 outings before we broke, and it was just different. So we're all creatures of habit, and I think we're used to having a normal spring and that normal build up, and it just hasn't been normal the last few years. So yes, I'm looking forward to being able to get out on the mound in front of fans and being able to pitch and try to win baseball games, and that's the fun part to me. So we're getting close. I just threw a live a couple days ago, so next step for me is kind of being on a normal schedule now with the 5 to 6 days and building up that way and get, probably 5 to 6 outings. So just a normal build up, and thankfully at this point everything has gone well, so I hope to continue just normal build up and being able to get out and play in spring games and then get back to Milwaukee and start the journey again.
Do you think us in the baseball world, maybe we won't realize it for a couple more years, but really 2020 being so weird with where you're ready to go, then you're not, and then like ramp up real fast again, and then 2021, like, okay, let's everyone act like everything's normal when it's not, and then last year with the lockout, do you think people kind of understate? I know we all say like, oh, it feels nice to feel normal, but like it really does. No, especially from the pitchers, creatures of habit.
And honestly, like spring training is for basically pitchers to build up, is what it's for. A lot of positional guys can get 10 to 20 at bats and be ready to go. And that'll take a span of a week. And spread them out, but it's in realistic terms, it's for the pitchers to build up and be able to for the starters to build those innings and pitch counts up and get the relievers up to the the back-to-back days and be able to recover and do it again. So it really is nice to be able to come in and, like I said, just take your time, and because you do all the stuff in the off season to build up, so it's kind of like a build up process, and then you come in, it's kind of like, all right, take the first week as a breather, and then you restart that process again. And it's just nice being able to do that on a normal schedule and go at your own pace and not feel like you have to rush like last year and with the lockout and stuff. So it's been nice, and just getting around everybody again and seeing everybody and getting to know new teammates is always fun, and getting to know what they like, don't like, personalities, how that's going to mesh in the clubhouse. So it's always interesting every year.
Walking into the clubhouse, at least, myself as a member of the media, right? It's relaxed. Everyone's with everybody. Everyone mingles with everybody. And I know this is the only clubhouse you've ever known, but that's not normal. Teams have cliques. Not every team is like that. Yeah. But there is a tight-knit group with this club. And I think, not to do the trials and tribulations of 2022, but I think you guys have really learned how important the relationships are over the last, this core coming up together. Is there anything you do to foster that? Or now that, like we joke that you are the veteran now, I mean, team camaraderie matters more than people realize.
It does. And honestly, we've been lucky because I go to the starting staff, and a lot of guys in the bullpen, we've been together through the minor leagues and through big leagues, and we've struggled and succeeded together, and we just know each other so well. So I think having that advantage coming in of just knowing who's going to be around, and we've been around for each other for so long, and having Hookie as our pitching coach since 19, he was my pitching coach in AA in 16, so he's had eyes on me for 8 years now. So, and even before that, before I got to him, so he's seen me for a while, and that's a great thing for us as a staff, with me and Freddie and Corbin and Hauser and now Lauer's been here for 4 years. So, and Wade being here previously in 18, and then you got, Devin's been around for a while since, me and Devin basically played together from Helena and short season all the way till now. So, you don't get that much. And there's been a little bit of turnaround on the positional side, but it's pretty easy once you get into this clubhouse. We like to have fun and be laid back and just go out and try to play a brand of baseball that that makes the fans proud and it makes us proud of ourselves, because we pride ourselves on playing hard. So, but it is nice having the familiarity with everybody in the clubhouse, especially the starting staff, because we know each other so well. So.
You mentioned Hookie too. I mean, for you, arriving in the big leagues with Derek as your pitching coach, and then obviously you mentioned the familiarity with Chris, but what has he brought out of you? What have you learned? Now on technically your second pitching coach, but you've had him before. What has he brought out of you? What do you lean on him for to give you critiques and get you better?
I think I go back to 16 when I first got to him. I was this slow, methodical, big dude that just, didn't really have much of a plan in terms of the work in between before starts. And he really just took me, and looking back now, the plan, was just basically speed me up and get me a more athletic delivery and get me moving down the mound. And that's kind of where it all started for me with Hookie. And then I didn't realize what we were doing at the time, but it just sped me up, made me real athletic. And if you look back at my delivery, it was super. It got really, really fast. Now I'm in kind of like a happy medium, and I've been in this spot for probably the last, 4 years or so. And him seeing me throw so many pitches, the eye test goes along with the metrics, I guess, if that makes sense. So. He knows when stuff looks right, and he's able to come and talk to me. If he can tell, I can tell something's not right. We can have the numbers match up with the way he's seeing with the eye test, and that's the biggest thing. Just because he's like, I know if it looks right and if it doesn't look right, and that's hard to have somebody to be able to see that. And thankfully he's seen me for so long. Like I've said, it's been able to identify it real quick, and even in game. Like if there's an inning where he picks up something and I'm not necessarily feeling it, he's able to relay that, and I'm able to make an adjustment quick. So, a lot of us in the starting staff, have been around him for so long that he does that with everybody. So that's like a huge advantage.
Do you feel like when you watch that old tape of the minor league Brandon Woodruff, it's like we're both golfers, right? When you see a bad swing on tape, it's like, God, what was I doing there? When you think you were so locked in at that point, the growth that you've had from minor league prospect to now big league, all-star starter is something that I think personally it's a testament to your hard work, and it's a testament to great coaching here with the Brewers. But if somebody's listening or watching that's in a similar perspective or similar situation, like, maybe a really top-end talent coming out of high school, getting ready to decide, do I want to go for the draft? Do I want to go play Division I baseball? What were those days like for you trying to figure out, hey, the Rangers are, getting ready to call my name, and third round, if I'm not mistaken, fifth round, and all of a sudden it's like the decision comes at you a lot faster. Can you take us back to that?
Man, that was wild. Like I grew up in such a small town that I never did the travel ball stuff. So the go play in Jupiter, go play in, I guess East Cobb was a big tournament for travel ball guys. I just, looking back on it now, my parents just really couldn't afford for me to do it, but I played American Legion ball in the summers from the time I was in 9th grade through my senior year, and those are still probably the funnest times I've ever had playing baseball. I never did showcase stuff, like I said, but I got selected. So kind of how it happened for me was I could always throw hard, so I pitched in high school. I was first a hitter coming up. So I first got recruited to college to hit, and then I get to a summer tournament in Mississippi. It's called the State Games of Mississippi. So there's 8 different districts in the state. You go try out for your district. If you make the team, you play all the other districts in like a weekend tournament. So get down there, do pretty well hitting, and then I first get started. That's when my recruiting process started. Didn't even pitch in the tournament. Played first base, played some outfield, and then so Mississippi State, which is my dream school and where I ended up going, they ended up giving my dad a car at Ole Miss State. So that it just kind of all started building up. And then as I got into my senior year, closer to my senior year summer, I played in a tournament called the Sun Belt Classic. So they take like, I don't know, the top whatever guys from the state of Mississippi, and you play Team Arizona, Team Georgia, Team, whatever. So there's like 10 different teams. You go out to Arizona and play for a week, or Oklahoma and play for a week. And I get out there, and they said, hey, you pitched in high school. We knew you pitched, and I think I had like, my junior year, I think I had like 100 and something punch outs in like 50 innings. So it was like ridiculous. And they're like, can you pitch in game 2? We had 2 games the first day. And I was like, sure. Played right field the first game. Second game, I come in relief at the end of the game, and we're playing in McAlester, Oklahoma. And I remember it like yesterday. When you're pitching, it's going to be kind of like, we're going to have the pitch clocks, behind home plate. Well, hanging off the side of the dugout, they had a radar. Mm-hmm. So you could throw, and it was like right in your line of sight. Like,
bam, you see it.
Boom, you see how hard you're throwing. So, and the previous hard I'd thrown was 90 my sophomore year. So getting trying out for the state games, like I mentioned. So I was like, okay, I've hit 90 before, but I haven't been clocked since. And I was like 90 to 95 for 2 innings. So then that's where everything started spiraling for me. There was a couple pro scouts there, and all the big time college schools, they come out to this tournament. And then after that, it was immediate like offer from Mississippi State, all the SEC schools, a lot around the area, Alabama, Tennessee. I think LSU called, but I was going to stay in state. So for me, it was small town kid having fun with his buddies, playing Legion ball, and then I did these tournaments, and that was like the only time I really like got in front of like scouts. Yeah. So then all this started happening. Then I got selected to play in the Under Armour All-American game my senior year. Wasn't going to play in it because I'd never flown before, and I didn't want to go to Chicago. Played at Wrigley Field. Right. Didn't want to go play in it because I was going to miss the first week of my senior year of high school. So thankfully I did. Ended up doing it. It was an unbelievable experience. It was pretty cool. And then it turned into my senior season, and then I had like 20 scouts at every game when I was pitching. So the Rangers were actually going to give me the opportunity to hit and pitch coming out. But knowing what I know now, I don't think it would have worked out. Like, I would have been thrown into a situation where baseball is every day. Like, I didn't do that. I was playing with my buddies, on the weekends, and Legion ball maybe once during the middle of the week. Then it was going to turn into every day, throwing every day. So my dream was to play in college. And I think if I had any advice, like, for any kid going through the draft out of high school, it's like, now the college landscape has completely changed with the NIL. It's so different. So for me, it was going to take like a substantial amount of money, life-changing money for me to go. And I would never tell the teams what I really wanted. I just said it was going to take a lot. And the Rangers offered a good amount, but I just didn't think it was enough to take and pass up on the college experience. And ended up going to college. My freshman year was my best year. Sophomore year, I had surgery. Junior year, I stunk, quite frankly. Coming back from injury, and I wanted to do well because I was top prospect. And so then the Brewers called in the 11th round, and I thought I was going to be taken on like day 2 in like the 4th, 5th round, and it didn't happen. And I remember sitting there, and I was like, man, I'm probably going to have to go back to school, which is not a bad thing looking back now, but I was disappointed. Like, I wanted to be taken high and all this. And so then the Brewers drafted me, and I said, if you give me this was part of the new CBA where after the 10th round you could only get $100,000, and then that do the school, pay for your school or whatever if you go back. I said, if you do that, I'll sign. So did it, signed. 2 days later, I'm in Helena, Montana, showing up at. I was actually talking to Charlie Green about this and the other day. Showing up and getting on a yellow school bus, and you have like a week of like camp before actual season starts. And I remember there wasn't like one dude speaking any English. I'm on this yellow school bus. We go from the hotel to the field, and then this field in Helena was just like bad. It was. I'm
an ex-Pioneer Leaguer.
Okay,
I know it.
okay,
I was in Orem,
bad.
so
it was bad. So I get there, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, this is pro ball. So that's really where I figured out, like, all the stuff I learned in college, the work ethic there, how hard they push you in strength and conditioning in college. It, like, prepared me for pro ball, like, just to be able to have the mindset to work. And I'm the type of guy that's going to go, like, if I do something, I'm going to finish it. Like, I feel like I have to do workout, arm, like, I'm going to do everything I can. And you just really realize that was the first moment once I got there. It was like, all right, this is my job. One, I really have to put a lot of time and effort in. And then that's just kind of where it started and went on the journey.
That's a hell of a story and a hell of a conversation for, that's perfect. Like sitting back with your buddies, like, yeah, here's how this happened and everything that went down. Do you miss hitting at all? Being completely honest.
No, to be honest, it was very cool getting to see what it looks like, what the positional guys get to see every day. So I just remember in 19, we're in New York and I'm facing off against Syndergaard, and he was throwing like 99 mile an hour sink balls, and I was that right there was something cool. And I got to face Scherzer, so I got to see like what makes him. I faced him a few times, and it's just unbelievable how like good they are, So that part of it was cool to me, being able to see how, the different pitches work and being able to, try. Most of the time we're bunting, but that was the cool part about it. And you know what? When we had to hit, it was like I'm in the dugout and I'm trying to focus on pitching, and then it kind of gets to your spot in the lineup, and it's like, oh shoot, I got to go up here. Right. I got to strap on my stuff. I got to worry about doing my job here. And then if you run the bases, it was fun, but it's nice just being able to focus solely on just pitching. I don't have to worry about going up there and hitting and in between innings and stuff like that. So. I've had the cool moment, in the playoffs, and I think if that was my last, it wasn't my last hoorah. I stunk in 21 hitting. I got a lot of crap for it, and but no, it was fun. I don't miss it as much as you think I would. So
first of all, where is that ball, by the way? Did you get it?
It's at my house. Yeah, I've got it in the little glass case or whatever. So. That was a wild night too. Yeah, that
was incredible. And you are part of baseball history you were the last full-time pitcher to hit a home run in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's
there's only one left on left, and that's me.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I'm the only one.
That's even better. And it's off.
I think there's been three pitchers in the postseason to hit a home run, but I'm the only one to do it like left on left-handed. So
to hell with platoon splits, man.
Right?
It's no big deal. Just get up there and hit it.
Yeah.
I want to get into some of the way that your process works and the way that you've tried to make yourself a better pitcher.
Yeah.
Like I told you right before we started recording, I'm a nerd. So being the stats guy for BA and for Jeff and everybody, I'm looking stuff up. I'm trying to spice up the broadcast. Yeah. And throughout the season last year, I'm just seeing your changeup just light up.
Yeah.
And look, we know your curveball. We know you've got a slider. But the changeup, I feel like, it kind of caught people by surprise the last couple of years. How proud are you of developing that pitch, and what works for you when you throw that changeup?
I'll take you back to probably 2019. That's where we first really, I think as an organization, really started trying to push like the metric side of stuff. But like, they've been doing it behind the scenes, but this was the first year where they really were like, here it is in front of you, and try to figure it out. And I remember throwing some bullpens, and I told Hookie, I'm like, Hookie, I don't know what do you want me to do? Like I throw the correct spin, but it'll hit the batter in the head. Like what, it's just, so as I started this process, I was like, let me just try to make pitches and I'll go from there. So then I really got a good base of like what I do well. And in 18 at the end of the year and in September in the postseason, I really learned the power of the 4-seam and the 2-seam and how they played off of each other. So that started my base. And then for me, I've always never been that great at spinning the baseball in terms of curveballs and sliders. I just felt it was always tough for me to be able to command it, throw it down in the zone. So then I went after 19 and started to do some weighted ball stuff to shorten up my arm for more health-wise, but it helped me be able to throw breaking stuff more out front. So I got the 2 fastballs. I've got the base, I've got the changeup. Those are probably my 3 best pitches, and then the breaking stuff just kind of I've worked every offseason. I worked extremely hard on trying to get a consistent spin, and I would say not until really coming into 20. I'd say 20 was the first year where I really started to put it all together. I started using the curveball a little bit more, learned the power of it, and then once I took that into the offseason, it was like, okay, I got a 5-pitch mix here. How do I learn how to play all these off of each other? And then it was all about the 4-seam for one off season, being able to backspin as much as I can and get as much lift. And then the 2-seam, like every year there's always something. But I get to go back to your changeup. We can dive into this
Absolutely.
like a ton. Really, honestly, there was not much difference other than there wasn't really much of a grip change. It was really just execution. That's what it came down to. So the spin really wasn't that much different. I made an adjustment in Colorado that night in September, which kind of kicked off a September month that was pretty good for me. And the big part was the big part about Colorado is being able to just keep the ball in the ballpark and keep the ball down. So for me, I was warming up, and I found something in my slider grip. Actually, 2 pitches that changed that night. I hooked my slider a little bit more just to make sure I could throw it out front and keep it down. So then from that point forward, from that start, I've switched to this slider grip. It's just a small adjustment. And then this changeup, I just basically went up the seam with my middle finger a little bit more and spread my fingers out a little bit, and it helped me keep the ball down that night. So I took those 2 pitches with me for the rest of the month. But in terms of the changeup, I think it gave me a little bit more. I started getting a little bit more tilt, side spin on it. I think I was averaging. I don't know what I was averaging, but I started getting into 2 to 230 on the clock with that pitch, and it allowed it to get a little bit more depth. Nothing like super drastic. I was just executing better. I think I was selling it better. So everybody knows I like to throw both fastballs. So then it just turned into like I was locating a fastball, and then I was using the changeup at the right spots, and I just had good success. I didn't realize that the whiff on it was leading for all starters.
Yeah.
From what I learned, I just tried to go out, and all I do every outing is just try to go out and execute every pitch. If I've got 100, I try to execute 100 pitches, and some nights are better than others, and I just got in a good groove with being able to throw the changeup in a good spot below, strike the ball or for a strike at the bottom of the zone, and it just really worked out. But I say all this, and I could talk a lot about this, but I've understood myself. I've gotten to a point where I understand my delivery. I can now feel when I'm in an outing or if I'm in a bullpen and we've got the number of the TrackMan stuff pulling up, I can tell when I release the ball if it's going to have the proper movements I'm looking for. So for the 2-seam, I don't want to stay behind that ball like I do my 4-seam. I can feel when I do, and I'm able to make that adjustment. So that's a big part of just getting older, more experience, throwing innings, like getting a better feel. So I've just gotten to a point where I've got 5 different pitches, and it's hard to get my hand in all, for the 4-seam, the 2-seam is a little bit different, the changeup's a little bit different. You got the curveball, slider. I've got my hand going in so many different directions. So sometimes I'm not going to have all 5. If I've got all 5 in an outing, it's going to be a good day.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of need to pick 2 to 3 that I'm really got and go with that. So it's just over these past few years, I've just understood myself, learned myself better, learn what works for me in my routine, getting ready in between starts, and that just takes time. That's just, from the young guy at 18, 19, even 20, like I've learned so much over those years. It's helped me in 21, even from 21 to 22. Even though I was hurt last year, I think that year really, I learned so much about myself last year than I did in 21 when I had a better year. And that's just, you take pieces from every year and you try to always put it together. Like I think you look at the guys like Verlander and Scherzer, who have been doing it for so long, but they never stop trying to improve on different things. And I look at the guys on our staff with everybody, Corbin, Freddie, Lauer, Hauser, and even Wade. Like Wade's a brilliant mind when it comes to pitching. He does it a different way. So there's always, you just learn from everybody, and you kind of take what works for you, and you try to become the best at that. And that's kind of way we evolve, and I'll never ever stop trying to get better in terms of little tweaks. But I know my base of what I do well.
I got 2 more questions.
So I talked for a long time there. So.
No, that was fantastic. I have 2 more questions for you. You mentioned the injury last year.
Yeah.
Started with the ankle. We learned it's Raynaud syndrome. Reaction to that, the treatment, and you came out firing coming out in the middle of the year. What was that month like before you returned there in June?
Honestly, my wife, Joni, said it. Like, she's like, you're going to look back on this and it's going to make you better this year. She's like, because I was mad. I had to go on. Like, I think it was just going to be like a 1-start deal with the ankle, and then we had a doubleheader and things shook out the way it did. And then I developed that basically when I went on the IL with the Raynauds. It was a weird thing that happened. And once I went on and once I figured out, like, once I realized, like, there's nothing I can do about it, I'm going to be on the IL for at least 2 weeks. Like, I took it as a mental break because I was really hard on myself that first month and a half. Like, I wasn't performing at all. Like, I had a terrible spring. First month and a half was not good for me. I was inconsistent. I had a few good outings, and when my bad outings, they were bad. So I knew the type of pitcher I am, and I know what I can do. It's just a matter I've got to hammer out the stuff in between my starts that I know works, and eventually I'll start seeing some results. I just don't know when it's going to happen. So I took that time on the IL to really clear everything. And the night I got hurt in St. Louis, that's in my delivery. I'm kind of a feel pitcher, like I mentioned before. Everything felt right. So I was like, okay, that's it. So St. Louis, I found it, and I'm like, I got to keep the throwing program going. So then once I get into my outings in the minor leagues for the rehab, like I went in with a mission to really, like, make sure I was ready. I think that was the biggest thing I took from that. And thankfully those went well, and I start seeing the results, and kind of back up a little bit with the finger situation with the Raynauds. It was just a weird deal where when I would grip the ball and throw it, the blood just basically wasn't getting back to my fingertips. So over, 5 to 10 throws gripping the ball, I would just lose feeling, and they would basically just turn white, and it was just like numb. Like if you were outside in the cold and your hands just start freezing and they just go numb. So got on some medication, ended up getting off the medication because the warm weather is like number one factor for me. So the warm weather, being able to keep my fingers warm in between innings. I really didn't have a problem with it until we went to San Francisco when I came back.
Hand warmers.
Yeah, I had the hand warmers, and I try to do everything I can in between innings to keep them warm. But warm weather affects it a lot. It keeps them pretty good. I didn't really have any problems with this off season. So they might get a little chilly. That's about the only problem I had with them so far. So throwing the other day in the live, the wind was blowing like 30, and it was chilly. That was a good test, and it passed the test. So, but then I come back from the injury, and I was just in a good spot mechanically, and really just mentally, I knew, like, all right, I know the type of pitcher I am. I just have to go out and do it. I don't know when, like I said, I don't know when it's going to happen, but we all go on these little rolls where we're in them, but we don't know we're in them in these stretches, and you're pitching well, and you just try to sustain that as long as you can. And it just started that night in Tampa. I was just able to one, just get ahead, use my fastball to both sides of the plate, and then everything else played off of that. And it was a good night. And I just built upon that and tried to get as consistent as possible. And, thankfully, when I came back from that, it was just a good run from that night. I don't even know the date when that came back, but I think it was in June, maybe.
June 28th, I believe.
Okay.
I had to look it up so many times.
Yeah, so from that point forward, it was just like, I've got a good throwing program here in between starts. I'm listening to my body a little bit better. I know what works for me. I know, like, it got to the point where the changeup was a big pitch for me, so I started using it more. You just start putting the pieces together, and then you get on a little stretch where you're pitching well, and just thankfully it went well. But I just knew in the back of my mind it was like I can get this going. I can still pitch well and still salvage a season, you know.
I know fans are happy that you figured it out. I'll leave you with this. This is kind of a broad spectrum question here. With rule changes, with the way the game's going, with everyone talking about we need more action in the game, we need more this, we need more, balls in play. But hey, you're a pitcher. Your job is to get guys out by any means necessary. Yeah. As you see the current state of the game, trying to make it, a little more hitter friendly, but still the pitching is very dominant in today's game. Just what do you make of the state of it and how baseball is trying to fix things and make it maybe a better product, or trying new things and seeing what goes on?
There's pros and cons. Like everybody, I think everybody can agree we want a faster game. But then you go back to when hitters started changing their approaches, pitchers started adjusting too. So then it became either a home run or a strikeout game. Well, it's just the game evolves, and it's, I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. But, foundationally, you just don't, as a pitcher and even as a positional player, you just don't want things that really mess with the foundation of the game. I think, this is more for the average fan where they want to come and they want to see a pitch every 15 seconds, but to like the real fan that actually understands the baseball game, they appreciate like all that really goes into it. Don't get me wrong. It'll be nice to be able, if these games are coming out to 2.5 hours, like that's more time at home with your family, which you don't really get. So we cherish those moments. And really going through lives and everything we've done so far with the clock, it's really, for starters, it's really not that big of an adjustment. You just really, from the windup is the only one that's kind of, you don't get any disengagement, so the clock just continues to run. So only time you can really get those seconds back before getting a ball is either if the batter calls time or if the catcher spins a visit. So that's really the only adjustment. In terms of if runners are on base, you get 2 disengagements, and then you got to get them out on the third one if you pick or whatever. So in terms of like keeping that going, that flow for me was not bad the other day. I expected it to be a lot quicker than it actually was. So I think once we get through probably a couple, the spring training games are going to really help. And I know last year they threw it on the minor leagues, like, boom, here you go, you got to start it today. And that was a real adjustment. We'll have this time here in spring to really get a feel for it, and hopefully the first couple of weeks, like, we'll be out there and not even noticing it, and then look up and hope that, we're having quicker games. But there'll be some interesting moments late in the games. I think that we're going to see some adjustments with the pitch clock and stuff. But there's definitely, as a pitcher, it's like I don't want any action on the bases, right? I want to get everybody out, and I don't care if it's like. But then again, you see like what they're trying to do, what MLB is trying to do. I just don't want it to take away from the foundation of the way the game is played, I guess, if that makes sense. So I don't think it will. We'll just do it in a little bit more timely fashion, I guess. So
a little quicker.
We'll see how it plays out. I think we'll really see it here starting tomorrow with the spring games.
Yeah, we'll see some athletes. We'll get plenty of reaction.
Definitely more running. Definitely got to do a better job of controlling running game. But then as the pitcher side of it, we got to take little advantages with this clock, So we'll see how it all plays out, and you just kind of got to find your little niche there to be able to take advantage of the new rules. So we'll see how it plays out.
We got plenty of time to break all. We got 162 games to break all of it down.
162. We'll see how it goes.
Well, Brandon, really appreciate your time today.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us here, and good health and best of luck this season.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.